I'm going to go ahead and get started. We appreciate all of y'all joining us this afternoon. My name's Chad Royal. I'm a faculty member in the counselor education program here, and on behalf of the faculty, that we have some members that are here, we want to welcome you into our program. Dr. Whiting was unable to be here today, but she does send her welcome to you as well. Could take a little while in this meeting, but you never know, just to see how much we need to cover based on what types of questions you might have by the time we're done. But our primary goal is to make sure that each of you gets registered for classes for the fall. So maybe we'll start off just by, if you could each introduce yourself, maybe tell us which track of our program you've been admitted to. And we'll start right here.
My name is Robin Bristow, and I'm trying to be in the mental health program.
Not trying to be, you are.
I want to accept it. So yeah, I am in the mental health program.
I want to just pause right there. There's something that's known as imposter syndrome with graduate students, that people think, once they really figure out who I am, then they will change their minds about being admitted into a program. And it's a falsehood that's not accurate. We have knowingly admitted you into our program. So we want you, and we won't get rid of you. So.
Okay, thank you for reassuring me. Yes, I am a student in the mental health program.
I'm Akeisha Lewis. I'm school counseling track.
Chanel Quick, career counselor.
Alexis Crump, mental health.
Katie Bradley, school counselor. Julia Hoddle, mental health counseling.
Olivia Corey, mental health counseling. Nicole Walker, school counseling.
All right. Well, welcome to each of you. We'll maybe take a minute for the faculty that are here for them to introduce themselves. We certainly have, I think, bios in the PowerPoint, but I'll just skip over yours if you want to introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Former student.
I was going to give her a minute.
Yeah, skip it. That was okay. What was the?
I was going to let you get settled. It was just who are you and what track are you in?
Okay, Monica Reed and school counseling.
Well, I'm Edward Moody. I teach all three tracks, mental health, school, and career counseling. So we're glad you're here.
I'm Jenny Barrow, and welcome. I'm the director of the school counseling program, so welcome.
I'm Robbie Warren. I coordinate the substance abuse program and teach internship.
All right. They gave a very abbreviated version so far. We also have Dr. Dane.
That was even shorter.
That was
Dr.
even
Dane.
shorter. She's pulling.
She is from the Bahamas. And she has school spirit.
Oh, yes. Maroon and gray day.
I'm Jules Joyner. I'm the admin support for the counseling program.
And she also carries the title of Lifesaver.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm Caroline Gobble. I'm a first-year grad student in the mental health and school counseling programs, and hopefully do a METLCAST certification as well. And I'm a graduate assistant. So.
Do you have?
Go girl.
Yeah.
Do you have a 4 o'clock class today?
4 o'clock class.
Oh, okay.
We'll get you out.
We'll get you out. In case we finish early, I don't know if she's open to it, but she might be a person you want to bend her ear a little bit.
Definitely. Well, Dr. Dames is my professor, so she lets me come to class late. It's
Ah.
on her.
Put it on the spot. Put it on the spot.
All right. Well, before I get to the other faculty introductions, I just want to point out to this page, and if you have brought something to write with, I'm going to ask you and just go ahead and point out the very first thing that you want to do when you leave today, or maybe if you have a mobile device, you could go ahead and do it now, is to first find your cursor. There it is. Go to the students page and put in your email address right here. So we have a self-subscribing email list. Unless you subscribe to this email list right here, you will not get communication from us. You'll get lots of junk mail, not junk mail, pardon my language, other types of email from the university that may not be specific to our program. But if you want program-specific emails, we send out not a whole lot, but anything that's important in terms of an announcement is going to come through this email list. And so if you haven't subscribed to it, we will not be held accountable for that, because we do our best to communicate with you and make sure that information is passed to you. And it will go through email. It can also go through various forms of social media. So if you happen to have any of those types of accounts, which was on that main page, feel free to subscribe that way too. But we do send out lots of announcements and things that way. Anything that's important, you're going to get through email. So let's go back to the PowerPoint here. I apologize for my head being turned here. It's about as far as this cord is going to reach. All right, so one basic primer about our program is we are actually titled the Counselor Education Program, and we are a program within something called the Department of Allied Professions. So in our department, we have Communication Disorders Program, our program, and Educational Leadership Program. Now the person who is in charge of this entire department is this gentleman right back here. He teaches primarily one class within our program, so you will have him as an instructor, and I've been told he's very intimidating as an instructor.
No, it's not true.
Not true.
It'll be fun when you get there. Or you get finished.
So he's in charge of the entire department, which means he's a pretty busy individual, having to keep all the faculty members in line from all three of these.
Some worse than others.
So he's the department chair level. In terms of the person that's over our program, that's Dr. Whiting. So here's a little bit more about Dr. Moody. He chose not to share a whole lot about this, but he's, do you want me to go into any detail? Or?
No, I say, let's keep trucking.
Let's skip over.
Tell them about Dr. Whiting, though.
Well, let me just read from here, because she's probably the one who's put all this together. She's a full professor. She's a licensed professional counselor supervisor. So just a type of license for a professional counseling in the state. She's also a K-12 school counselor and a certified thanatologist. So she specializes in crisis, trauma, and grief counseling, and serves on the board of the directors for the Association for Death Education Counseling. So if you have a special interest in crisis and grief counseling, she will really be your go-to person. And I'm not sure, have we developed the certification?
Not yet, we probably will, but one other thing, this has probably happened since she wrote that, she was the UNC Board of Governors Teacher of the Year last year, which is a really big deal, a system situation. So Dr. Whiting's someone really good to have for class, and what Dr. Royal's alluding to is there's more than one trauma class that you could take, and so if you have any interest in that, it would be a good idea to pick both of those up.
Dr. Barrow, she also didn't share too much about her, but she's got over 10 years of actually being a school counselor. And she's been with us now 2 or 3 years. In her third year. So she's not too far removed at all from that real world experience. So you can read a little bit more about her work experience. She's conducted groups related to female self-esteem, healthy relationships, media influences, and done lots of presentations on the topic. And she's that coordinator of the school counseling program. So lots of you that might be school majors might end up having her as your advisor. Dr. Dames, all she mentioned was she was from the Bahamas, but she has also has school counseling experience. She's also a registered nurse for over 20 years. She's worked in elementary and high schools and hospital settings. And she has also an influence in a focus on career development. At one point, she was president of the Florida Career Development Association. So anybody that's a career major potentially will want to be linked up with her as well. Dr. Horn, he talked about a little bit about himself. He is a licensed clinical addiction specialist and a licensed professional counselor. Anybody that has any interest in working with substance abuse, Dr. Horn's going to be your go-to person as well. We'll talk a little bit more maybe later in terms of an additional licensure that you can pursue, the LCAS, or Licensed Clinical Addiction Specialist. Dr. Currian snuck in, is in the back there. Do you want me to read here, or do you want to maybe introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Dr. Curry. I'm a part of the clinical mental health track. I'm not in the track, I'm actually part of the program professors. My areas of interest include substance abuse. Thank you, Robert. Also, I'm on the multicultural gender issues. I teach that course, Intro to Substance Abuse. Ed research, I also teach, that's at the end of the program after you have the wonderful time with Dr. Moody, then you have my class. I also serve on the North Carolina Board of Licensed Professional Counselors and clinical mental health or even school or career people who are interested in becoming licensed. We look over license applications and see hearings, deal with ethics. So several of us are represented across the state, so we deal with those issues. But the other interests I have are HIV and recently infertility among couples of color.
All right. That position she mentioned on the board is a state position, and it's a governor-appointed deal, so there aren't too many people like that on the board. Is it maybe
There's
10?
maybe 9 of us.
9?
And you're the only counselor educator, right?
There's 2 of us.
Who
There's
is
one
the-
from Angela McDonald, she's at UNC.
Gotcha, okay, good.
There's usually lots of questions about licensure as you get close to the end of the program. So just maybe for now, keep tucked in the back of your mind, Dr. Currian is going to be an excellent resource when it comes to licensure as an LPC. Dr. Newsom is an assistant professor. She's the coordinator of the clinical mental health program. She is also a licensed professional counselor supervisor. She served on the board as well, the LPC board, and served 2 terms as the ethics chair. Guess which class she teaches here within the program? Ethics. So you're likely to get a good experience in the class that she teaches. It's professional orientation and ethics, I believe, is a class. One of the first ones you'll take. She's also a faculty advisor with Dr. Dames. Is that accurate? Y'all are both advisors to our Honor Society, our chapter of Chi Sigma Iota, which is a counseling honor society. She has extensive experience working with veterans and trauma. This is me. I'm not going to sit here and read through this, but I guess what I think people get the impression I'm the IT guy for the department, so maybe that's the best way to think about it, but I am the one running the website and the webinars that we hold, as well as all the social media. That all comes from me. So that's pretty much what I'm known for. I obviously have an interest in technology. Dr. Wasick, she's unable to be here today as well. She's a coordinator of the career program, so those of you that might be career majors, potentially going to have her as an advisor. She's also an LPC. She has experience not only in private practice, but with corporate consulting. So she has a private clinical and consulting practice as well. Her research interests: positive psychology in the workplace, mindfulness, and leadership development. So that's the extent of our faculty. There are 9 of us total, which is a pretty good size for a master's level only program. And what I hope that you'll understand is that we are all very accessible. If you happen to have questions or concerns, you certainly can reach out to your advisor, but any of us would be willing to help out as much as we can. Any questions so far? All right. We have a copy of a handbook. We probably are going to be putting a more recent version. We update it, I think, every semester to make sure it's up to date. But we have one that's posted on our website, so you don't have a paper copy, but you can access a digital copy right off the website. And probably give us about a week or so to get the new one up there.
And Dr. Whiting said that it'll be emailed from now on, going forward.
Okay. So you'll have one that's applicable to you as you're admitted. We'll always have an updated one on the website. So in the past, we've kind of gone over some information related to accreditation organizations related to our profession. But I'm going to maybe go through this because I don't want to overwhelm you too much. Hopefully, everybody's a little bit aware of some of these acronyms simply by the fact that you've applied and been interviewed, and you hopefully knew kind of what you were getting into. So anybody not know what KCREP means? It's okay to raise your hand if you don't know.
Tell us.
I'd rather not.
Please.
But you do have certain benefits from being admitted into a KCREP accredited program, and hopefully that's what you found out along the way through this research process. So I'm just going to skip over some of these things. One of the things that I do want to mention is this Criteria C Licensed Clinical Addiction Specialist Program. Maybe I'll call on Dr. Horn, but just briefly, we have this status now so that with certain classes in our program, should you choose to do so, you can pursue licensure as a licensed clinical addiction specialist. So maybe just a couple of minutes to describe what it is.
Okay, I think most of you know that about becoming a licensed professional counselor and some of the other licensed professions. There's also a specialty, this credential is called licensed clinical addiction specialist. It is not in the mental health counseling field. It licenses you as an addiction counselor. We are a Criteria C program, and that means that we're a gold standard in the state. And myself and Dr. Curran actually coordinate this program. And so we'd be glad to talk to you about it. It's 4 additional classes. Typically, it's only 2 additional classes because if you're in the mental health side, you already take intro to substance abuse, and you have an advisor elective that you can take an addiction course in. And so that would mean 2 additional courses, and then you would meet the criteria. What does that really mean? If you complete all of the courses and you're doing your internship in a substance abuse setting, or if you have an interest in it, we'll talk about that, your internship, then that allows you to become a licensed clinical addiction specialist after you can pass the exam within a year versus 2 years. But it meets all the substance abuse specific courses. And so it's a great credential to have. That credential has reciprocity in 48 states and over 25 countries because as an LCAS, you can also become what's called an International Certified Advanced Alcohol and Drug Counselor. And so it's all the same test. I try to make sure it's online and help design the test that's actually used, the national test that's used. So I try to make sure that my courses set you up to do well on that. So I think we have a good program. Dr. Curran?
What does reciprocity mean?
What reciprocity means is that once you take the exam, the national exam, you can move to any other state, any of the 48 of the 50 states without having to take the license. You just take your credential, show your credential you've already passed, and you get whatever their license is called there, whether it's licensed clinical addiction counselor or whatever it is. Because on the international scale, it's all called advanced alcohol and drug counseling. That's actually the name of the international and national exam that you take. So that's the exam that you take, that's what you become, and so whatever state you go to, that's what it is. So this is a great credential. It's clinical. You can work for the government coming out. As soon as you register, as soon as you graduate and register, you can take a job as an LCAS, even though you haven't even taken the exam yet. But you have 2 years to take the exam. We have a lot of people who've already graduated who are already working in the field now as LCAS, and almost all of them that I can think of were hired from our program, were hired before they graduated. So it's very, very remarkable.
Most people who do also have an LPC
Right.
as well. So they have an LPCA, which is an associate. You're able to practice with supervision, and then you have an LCAS-A as well. So a lot of people come out with both credentials, which opens up a lot of opportunities for you for just an additional 2 or 3 classes, which is amazing.
And we're seeing more and more where people are specifically looking for that, people with an LCAS, because the way the funding works from the government now is, it requires people have a specific credential in addiction to work in it.
Is this all making sense to people? This usually is a lot to take in, and it usually takes people a semester or 2 before they can kind of figure out what even LPC means, or there's about 20 different acronyms in our profession to figure out. We're not expecting you to have all this memorized right now. We will teach you all these things along the way. Right now, I guess it's time to start considering, well, you know, let's say I'm on the school track and I might have an interest in doing substance abuse counseling. Now is the time to really start thinking, talking with your advisor about how to set up this plan of study. And it's not anything you have to decide right now. You can think about it. You can stay with us 6 years if you want to in the program to get all these things you need. You can double major. You can add on classes to become an LPC if you're not in the mental health track. These are all things that will help you get figured out. But now is the time to really start thinking about what it is you want to do. And we expect that it's likely that you'll change your mind along the way about what populations you even want to work with, and that's okay too. We just want to make sure you've got information so that you can give yourself as many options as possible down the line. So main thing to kind of understand right now is if you think you might have an interest in substance abuse counseling, Dr. Horn's going to be a good contact person for that. You also talk with your advisor about how to set up this plan of study. We'll make sure you get all the coursework that you need. So I mentioned about K-CREP and my desire just to skip over this information. We're already K-CREP program. We're also IRSEP approved, which means if you did have an interest in moving to another country after graduation, then most likely if that country recognizes IRSEP, then you're pretty much set to be able to work in that setting as well. Website for the licensed clinical addiction specialist. If you're interested right now, maybe just jot down the name of this organization so you can look up the website later. NC Substance Abuse Professional Practice Board. You can find out some more information there. We have learning outcomes that are set up so that you understand exactly what things you'll accomplish while you're with us, and I'm really not going to sit here and read through all these. These are on the website. But we are trying to be very clear and articulate what it is we're hoping you will achieve by the time you're done. Another website, just briefly to glance over, this is the website for the board, LPC board. I believe they've even updated their website. We haven't updated the PowerPoint, so it looks a little bit better than this now. It's only been in the last 6 months, I guess, since the website's been updated.
But the great thing is you can apply online now.
Ah, great, great. So we'll make sure that if you're interested in becoming a licensed professional counselor, that you're set up by the time you graduate. You can apply because you're coming from a K-CREP program, and you'll be ready to hopefully go right after graduation. Or pretty soon after that. I don't want to make any guarantees because there can be delays. But we'll make sure that you're up to speed when the time comes for knowing what to do. Showing you this now so that if you did want to go ahead and explore, investigate, you know where to go to. Another acronym, the Center for Credentialing and Education. They will be the entity that organizes your comprehensive exam. So before you graduate, you have to pass the comps, what we'll refer to it as. We administer the CPCE, which you might see a tab there at the top with that acronym. Again, another acronym. I believe it's counseling preparatory, blah, blah, blah. Comprehensive exam. See, we can't even keep the acronym straight, or I can't keep the acronym straight either. But that's the acronym for the exam. You're going to take the CPCE. So along the way, know that you'll be tested on everything by the time you finish. Every single class you take. Keep all of your books. Don't sell them back, because that's going to be your primary study guide. There are also additional study guides that you can purchase to help you study for the CPCE. If you do pursue that track of licensure as a licensed professional counselor, there will be yet another exam you have to take just before graduation, the licensure exam. And I'm not going to throw that acronym at you right now. But the study materials for that exam as well as the CPCE are about the same. So just know the exam's coming. It'll be from these people. It's a standardized test. We don't put it together. And you want to make sure you're studying for it along the way. More acronyms. We would encourage you to join a professional organization while you're a student. This will give you a great sense of professional identity. You can take your pick. There is the American Counseling Association. This is a broad organization that really represents all counselors through the country. They have an annual conference. With joining ACA, by the time you get to your practicum and internship, we will require you to have malpractice insurance before you see any clients. You join this organization, insurance is free. That also includes the American School Counseling Association. So if you're in the school track, you really don't care about ACA, you join ASCA, American School Counseling Association. They will also provide you with the malpractice insurance that you need. It comes with membership. Again, the primary emphasis is on professional identity. So once you join one of these organizations, you're going to get connected. You'll get emails, publications, all kinds of junk mail, whatever you might need that will give you an overload of professional identity. There's also an organization that represents the Mental Health Counselors Association. I believe they will also provide liability insurance if you choose to join these. You can join all these if you want to. There's not a limit, but I think we would probably encourage you to join at least one to help you gain some identity. For the career folks, the National Career Development Association. This is the national organization for those career development people. If you think about it, ACA is on the very top. They represent all counselors. They have specific divisions. NCDA is a division of the American Counseling Association. And at one point, ASCA and AMCA, the mental health counselors, they were also branches of ACA. But as things happen, political maneuvers within organizations, ASCA and AMCA are their own entities that represent just a specific group of counselors. NCDA is still under ACA. And I'm not trying to overwhelm, I guess just give some information here. NCDA does not provide that malpractice insurance with membership. So there's also local branches of each of the ones I've just mentioned. For ACA, there is the North Carolina Counseling Association. There's also an annual conference with that organization as well. It's usually February of each year. It was in Durham this past year. Very convenient. It does move around a little bit during the state. I think they try and keep it at the same place every couple of years, so you're likely to see it in Durham again this coming year. But it goes from Greensboro to Raleigh to Winston to Charlotte. Usually they move it around a little bit just so they can make sure everybody can get a chance to attend. It's a good way to network with local folks. So whether it's NCCA, let's see what other slides we have. Chi Sigma is the next one. So let me, before I go to that one, there's NCCA, there is the North Carolina School Counseling Association. There's the LPC-ANC is actually the state branch of AMCA. So for mental health folks, you're looking at LPC-ANC, which is the Licensed Professional Counselor Association of North Carolina. And then NCCDA, the North Carolina Career Development Association. If you're really looking to get the most bang for your buck in terms of conferences and being able to network with people, networking can mean employment in the future. So a good way to help that process along is to join the local organizations. If you're short on funds and you can't really join that national one right now, join the local one so you can get connected with local folks that you get to meet them, they get to meet you, and potentially can help you with employment later. So Chi Sigma, I briefly mentioned that before. It's an honor society. Requirements for membership are having a 3.5 GPA and you've completed at least 9 hours. So you have potential for being able to join this honor society within your first year in the program. Now I'm going to skip over some of these course numbers and names. These will be things that you'll see in your folder. You should have a copy of a plan of study for each of our tracks. It looks like it's on the right-hand side of your folder. So you're going to use this form when you meet with your advisor for the first time to talk about a plan of study. You may not meet with your advisor until the fall, because we're going to make sure you get set up with just basic classes today. And you may not need to really meet with your advisor until you're back in the fall, maybe September, October, sometime along that time frame. And then you can sit down and kind of map out what it will look like while you're with us and think about a projected date of graduation. But the thing that I want to point out with all these plans of study, if you'll notice, there's 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Everybody starts off in obviously phase 1. There's potential for there to be a little bit of overlap with courses in these phases, but you should not be taking phase 1 classes with phase 3 classes. You're going to overlap phase 1 and phase 2 and overlap phase 2 and phase 3. But you really shouldn't be overlapping any phase 1 with phase 3 classes. So you start out getting a lot of coursework, then you move on to more hands-on type classwork in phase 2. Phase 3 is out in the field. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me look to see here real quick. Since we're talking about coursework, I want you to go ahead and pull out this form right here, your override form. This is how we're going to get you registered for this coming semester. Now what I need you to go ahead and fill out is all this top part. You're going to need your name right here. Go ahead and put today's date, your name, and put what your major is. So if you're school counseling, put school counseling. If you're mental health counseling. If you're career, put career counseling and placement. For the semester over here, and tell me if I need to slow down any, but semester fall 2017. We're going to skip over your banner ID right now. This, if you've been in school recently, you know we don't use Social Security numbers. We use what we call 820 numbers. And so you'll have a 10-digit number. It's like a Social Security number. That's going to be your student ID. And that's really what that refers to as your banner ID, is your student ID number. Leave minor or concentration blank. Put a local telephone number and go ahead and sign over here. for being a student in our program, we would recommend that you take either 2 or 3 classes. Full-time status as a graduate student is 9 hours, which is 3 classes. In order to qualify for financial aid, you need 6 hours. Let's say on average, most people take 2 to 3 classes a semester. It's okay to take 1 per semester, especially now that Dr. Moody's gone. I'll say that out loud. It's okay to take 1 if you need to. But we would really rather you move on through the program and get out and get a job. So if you do take 1 class a semester, it'll take you a while to get through the program. Plus, if you're going to seek financial aid, you won't qualify for it. So you need at least 2 classes a semester. Now, let me just go ahead and offer this as well. If you have an interest in being a graduate assistant, which means getting paid for employment on campus, you need to take 3 classes. So we're going to want you to sign up for at least 2 classes right now. If you need a 3rd class, we'll talk about options at that point. But for right now, I want you to go ahead and put under this section CON as a subject. Course number, your first class is going to be 5201. And the course title, which you can see on your plan of study, is that very first class, Ethical Professional Orientation and Counseling. And I mentioned that instructor for the class, she's snuck in on us. Dr. Newsom is along the wall over here.
I apologize for being late. I was meeting students in a dyad group. You'll learn about that.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, you'll have just about every one of us as an instructor. So course credit hours is 3. And I believe we might have the CRN number. CRN stands for course reference number, I believe. And for the fall, we've given you this on the left-hand side of your folder. This is the class schedule listing. You will see that it is an online class this fall, and the CRN is 44047. That's what you want to put under this CRN right here. Is everybody with me so far? You need me to slow down? All right, for a 2nd class, we would recommend that you take Theories and Techniques, which is 5310. So CON 5310, class title, Theories and Techniques of Counseling. This will be with Dr. Barrow. 3 credit hours. The CRN is 44046. These 2 classes are the prerequisites to be able to take a group counseling class in the spring. So these are really 2 core classes you want to go ahead and get out of the way so that you won't be limited in other times. Now, another thing to consider is if you are a school counseling major, then you perhaps want to substitute theories class. You want to put in Introduction to School Counseling, which is the 2nd class that's listed here. That class is only offered in the fall. So if you don't get it now, you can't take the advanced class in the spring. You won't see it again until next fall. So for those of you that are school majors, you may want to substitute that if you can only take 2. If you can take 3, this would be your 3rd class. Does that make sense? For other majors, you don't really have that kind of limitation. So you can pick a different 3rd class. You want to look at Phase 1 classes on your plan of study. Other ones that you could potentially take, Intro to Substance Abuse Counseling, Crisis, Trauma, and Grief. I'm thinking about ones that are going to be required on your plan of study here. Vocational Theory and Career Development, which is 5320. Psychosocial Development, which is 5331. As I mentioned before, you cannot take group yet.
Just a question.
Yes.
On our class schedule listing, were all of the classes that are 12 a.m. to 12:01 a.m., are all those online?
They should be. What really denotes an online class is under section. It says OL, and then it will have a section number. So OL is online.
Okay.
Another possible third class, multicultural and gender issues. That's on the second page, 5360. And that might be it. The rest of anything with phase 2, we don't want to take yet. Intro to mental health, that listed, that's 5381. So that's second page, 5381. Intro to mental health. So everybody's got at least 2 classes they've signed up for, is that right? And you know if you're going to take a third one, your possible options. Any questions about those? All right, so we're going to take care. Make sure that you leave those override forms with us today. Don't take it home with you. Leave it here. We'll make sure that you get manually enrolled into those for the fall. If you want to spend some time thinking about what that third class might be, then we'll need to have these probably back within the next day or so. For any subsequent semesters, most likely you'll be able to self-register. So I'm going to walk you through that process for getting connected. Let me just go to the, instead of the PowerPoint, let me go to the actual website. Yes.
Any questions for me? Johnson?
Any questions for Dr. Dames? She's got to go teach a class.
Email away.
What's the All right, one little trick that I want to point out to you is that at the bottom of our web page, you scroll down, you'll see quick links down here in the bottom left corner of every page of our site. So to access just about anything that's campus related, My EOL is the way that you'll access registration, email, campus email, Blackboard. Blackboard is the name of the tool that we use for online classes. It's a software. You can all access that from right here. So I'm going to click on My EOL. And from there, this is how you can even get your email set up. You click on Log In to My Email, right? My EOL is at the top here. Because you don't have your username and password yet, you're going to go to Create an Account in My EOL. Is everybody with me? See that? Okay. You'll see this screen. So we'll make sure that you have your banner ID number today. That's your 820 number. Your banner PIN, which is right here, we will also refer to that as your login PIN. We have different pins on campus, so your login pin is different than what you'll use to register for classes. Your login pin is what gets you into Banner. This number is your birthday. It's 6 digits. So if your birthday is January 1st, 1980, it's going to be 010180. Does everybody understand?
The banner pin is the birthday.
Your banner pin is your birthday.
So when you log in the first time, it's going to, you've got to watch that screen real closely because it's going to tell you your banner pin has expired, which is a little bit confusing. So then you'll put in your birthday again. So let's say you're born June 1st, 2000, 060100. You put that in again, and then you create your own pin and hold on to that pin because you'll need that from here on out.
Don't use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah. Anyone is there anyone here that was a student at NCCU before? So yours is different. So whatever your login pin was when you were a student, it is the same thing. So if you can remember it, great. If you can't, we'll try to reset it, and it'll reset to your birthday. So just let us know. That always throws folks off.
So you'll put in your 820 number, that banner pin or the login pin, and type your last name, and then click verify your information. And then it will walk you through, you'll get that message that says your pin's expired. From there, go ahead and show you what it perhaps looks like. You should be able to set up a password. And this rectangle right here is a way to access all the systems on campus. So you'll see, I might have a few more options just as a faculty member. You see email, you will see Banner SSB. That is a system that you'll use to register for classes later. Banner, self-service Banner, SSB. And you can also see a link for Blackboard here. So when you take an online class, or really any class you take, is going to have what's called a Blackboard site with it, in conjunction with it. But if it's an online class, that's really how you take your class, as you go into Blackboard. Any questions about creating an account? I wanted to use the more recent version of what the web page looks like because you can see the access to that looks a little different now. And once you're into Banner SSB, this is the page. You can find out information about current schedule of classes. You can, when you click on this top part, that's where you'll register, pay for bills, things like that. And it will be some subsequent screens that you just kind of navigate through to get to the list of classes. Here's the screen, I guess, that I was just referring to. Registration, you can see your transcript, look at financial aid status, various forms, things like that. This is what the screen will look like to add or drop classes. In all the rest of the semesters after this one, you self-register for classes. We will give you an additional PIN. We will call it the registration pin or the alternate pin. I don't want to confuse you with that right now. What you need to keep in mind right now is just how to log into Banner. If you need to change your schedule after you get in these first set of classes, you're going to contact your advisor. Your advisor can give you your PIN. Your advisor gives you your PIN every semester anyway, in order to get registered for classes. But with that other PIN, you'll be able to drop a class if you need to, or add another one, should circumstances change. Any questions about this? A couple more things about the website, and then we'll probably be done. I apologize for having this trouble here. I've got two different screens I'm looking at. I can't tell where my cursor is. Anybody see it?
It's on your left.
Ah, okay. All right, so we talked about the website already. We recommend that you look at our textbook list before you make a trip over to the bookstore. Some people might be required to go through the bookstore because of whatever credits there are related to financial aid, and that is okay. We have had lots of trouble over the years with the bookstore ordering the right books, the appropriate number of books at all. So we provide our textbook list on the website. And if you're one of those people that wants to make sure you have everything set before classes are begin, then, which is what I would recommend, you can look at our textbook list, and we try to keep it updated as best as possible. You can see what books you need for any class in the program. Go ahead and purchase them in whatever way you want to, Amazon, whatever. And so you'll be ready. I would encourage you that if right before you hit that purchase button is maybe check with the instructor to see if those are in fact the books you'll be using. I myself don't mind an email that says, hey, are these the books, the right books for this class? I'll just say yes. So go ahead and buy them. Just so you're not having to purchase something and send it back. But that will be there for the duration. So you don't have to rely on the bookstore to get that textbook information. Just about any question that hopefully you might have while you're with us can potentially be answered through the site here. So there's sections on advising, which you'll see down here. Along the way, we will require you to purchase something called FolioTech. FolioTech is an electronic portfolio system. This is the Greater School of Education requires us to use this type of system. We really use it for is kind of a warehouse of all your academic work. So with each class you take, you're going to produce lots of papers, documents, reflections, whatever the case might be with that class, and we will want you to upload that into the FolioTech system. It is separate from the university. It's its own company out of St. Louis. And so I think it's probably about $30 a year. And that email will come at some point in the fall. We probably will not generate these accounts until then. But you'll have to make sure that when you get that email from FolioTech, because it comes from them, that you respond to it and go ahead and create an account. That account will be specific to you because it's all based on portfolios. So a school counseling major is going to have a different type of portfolio because they take different types of classes from the mental health major. And then it's kind of on your shoulders to upload your work as you go. Each semester will post a deadline for the previous semester's work to be uploaded, and you're going to want to have it uploaded by then. Any questions about FolioTech? So these aren't codes that Foliotech will give you. You can't call them up and they won't provide them to you. They expect us to generate all this. So you just have to wait to get the email. I think that's pretty much it for me. Am I missing anything, faculty?
I need to talk for a minute about graduate assistantships. So if you're interested in a graduate assistantship, I need to hear from you by, let's say, next Monday at 5 o'clock. And so here's what you would need to do. You would need to send me your resume, and you would also need to copy Dr. Peggy Whiting on that email, and send me your banner ID. Remind me, I need to say something about the banner ID too. And basically, here's the criteria that we look at for receiving a graduate assistantship. So tell us what your undergraduate GPA was. I think everyone's GPA is 3.0 or above, but it would have to be at least 3.0. Tell me whether you're an in-state student or an out-of-state student, and you would have to take 9 hours. So let me know that you're willing to take 9 hours. Now, once I get your application, I'll go through and I'll look at it, and I'll look to see if you're registered for 9 hours. So you would need to be registered by then for 9 hours. And graduate assistantships are for 10 to 15 hours a week. Usually they're working with someone within our department. They may be working within some other departments, but somewhere here within the school of education. They tend to be 1 year only, because once you do practicum and internship, and once you start that, you really can't do that. So it would be a kind of a 9 to 5 kind of thing. It wouldn't be every day. There's some flexibility as far as schedules and so forth. But it's a pretty good way to get some experience, and quite helpful with you know, a little bit of resources for your schooling and so forth. So just remember that. The other thing is, there's a lot of difficulty around this whole banner business. Like you folks that were NCCU students, I may have to help you. So if you have trouble registering, or you're having trouble when you have these particular issues, you would email me and your advisor, and always give me your banner ID. I can't do anything with your email if I don't have your banner ID, and always tell me what it is that you're trying to do. So don't just send me an email and say, I can't get into classes. Tell me what class. I can't get into CON 5320, the CRN course reference number is such and such, because then we just handle it just like that, and copy your advisor so I know your advisor is okay with you taking an extra class or whatever, and we can fix it. So sometimes some of those things, time is of the essence. I think all of Dr. Horn's classes, registration opened up yesterday. Those substitute classes, I think they're all full. So like when you've got an issue, you email and with the information, because it could be the difference between getting into that class and not getting into that class. One other thing that confuses people, this is phase 2, but you'll take statistics, basic statistics, EDGR 5910, and educational research 5920. They're not listed under counseling, so those classes are listed under education graduate. Sometimes you can put yourself in statistics. Sometimes you have to do the override form, the same form you're doing with Dr. Royal now. You would have to do that. So just know that if you can't get in, it says there's a prerequisite error or something like that. That is going to happen with some classes, and just go ahead and start processing that override form, and we'll get you in. Do you guys have any questions?
I was looking at the days that classes were available. Like for group counseling, it says T. Is it Tuesday or Thursday?
Tuesday.
Okay.
Thursday will be an H.
Okay. And then an R on.
Or an R.
Okay.
Thank you. One of those.
My question is, if you are doing a graduate assistantship, does that mean that you can't receive financial aid?
Well, first of all, as far as financial aid, you've got to be taking at least 6 hours to get financial aid, and Our financial aid is only in loans, so it's the federal loan situation. If you receive a graduate assistantship, then it could be that they pay you a stipend. They will pay you a stipend. It could be that they pay your tuition, and so I don't know that they would give you the financial aid since your tuition would be paid for. Sometimes, like one of the things we try to do is get as many of our students to get graduate assistantships as possible. And so what I'll tend to do is, offer like a half package or something, so it may not pay for their tuition. But what the graduate dean will usually do is come back and say, hey, I've got this money here, and like this semester, she was able to give people, she was able to pay their tuition. So I don't know, but I would rather go with the GA because you're going to pay that student loan back. All of the financial aid, they'll give it to you, but you're going to pay it all back.
Do you have the dates for the residency?
We don't have the dates for the residency yet, and I'm glad you mentioned that. For those of you that are online students, you'll be required to attend 3 different residencies. Hopefully that's not new information. The first of which will be in August. That's about as specific as we have right now. The second residency will take place the following spring semester. We just had our second residency for the students that were admitted this past fall. So it was early March. And then the third residency will be during the summer. Those are tied into classes. So the second residency is in conjunction with group counseling. The third residency is in conjunction with pre-practicum.
So if you're an online student, make sure you do not drop 5201 or 5310 in ethics or theories and techniques, like if you end up dropping something, because then you can't do the group residency in the spring. You've got to have those 2 classes before you can take group.
I have some notes from Dr. Whitey, and she said that she would just send those dates very soon. Any other questions? I have a couple other notes that she sent along. I want to make sure that I covered all these. She is going to send advisor assignments in the next few weeks, and she says that you should not need to meet with your advisor until after the fall starts. You're welcome to get in touch with us, but you're going to be set up with classes for the fall already. So really won't be a required advising meeting until in the fall. She also talked about double majoring. If you do have an interest in that, I talked a little bit about that before. We've got some information on the site. You'll see a link that says, of course it would go out right there. It says something about dual major ? And you can read what's there. There it is. It's down here. Dual major. Procedures for should you want to change your program or track. Lots of different things that can be addressed. But if you have specific questions about what it would take for you, that it's not addressed right there, that would be something to talk with your advisor about. And I think that's pretty much it for the notes that she had. Just a reminder, make sure you sign up to our email listserv so that you're getting communication from us.
Since they're doing this manually, when will we know when we register for these classes?
Should be next week, I think. You're going to put people in.
Well, if they give them to me before they leave, I'll put them in the morning.
He's going to do it in the morning, and then I'm going to make sure you have your 820 number, so you can log into Banner and see the classes you're registering for.
So, on the presentation on the website, you said something about an iPad. Do you recommend a certain device, or we can just use anything?
Anything that will work. The software that we use for, I guess most specifically for supervision when you're in a clinical placement, We do have video conferencing that we use. We use something called WebEx, which is a Cisco product. It will work on a desktop or laptop. I tend to use an iPad to do that. It's very easy to manipulate that way. And most tablets or even a smartphone will have that camera built in and a microphone, so you don't need to buy anything else. But Blackboard is something you can access on an iPad or you can use a computer for. Anything else?
Okay, for the assistantship, is there an application that we have to go to?
There will, but I won't ask you to do that until we know we're going to give you one. So what will happen is you send me an email, and that's what could take some time. And so then I'll send an email and say, congratulations, and I'll tell you how many hours it would be and what the offer is, and I would give you a link, and then you would go to that link and complete the application there, and you would need to do that immediately, really. And then after that, the university takes it from there, and they would contact you at some point and say, hey, come and do this orientation, which is the first day of the month, and we go from there. You still wouldn't know what your assignment would be until the fall. You would just know you're in the School of Ed. And just as an aside, although I don't think we've admitted that many people for the fall, but we've also got the communication disorders, and we have the MSA program and the curriculum instruction program. So really it looks kind of good for GAs, but if you don't get one with us, usually you can get one from somewhere else. Earlier, Dr. Royal said, pay attention to your email and pay attention to our social media. So always the school counseling or the counseling center is asking for GAs. They will not ask until the fall. So we'll send something out. The athletic department will probably ask for GAs. So we'll send something out as well. And basically what happens, you would just communicate directly with them. So even if you don't get a GA with us, there's a chance you could get a GA elsewhere.
But you still send the email with your resume to Dr. Moody and Dr. Whiting.
Yeah, if you want it with us.
I have a question. Is it likely that we would hear back about the GA before FAFSA let us know?
Say that again?
If we applied for FAFSA already, is it likely that we would hear back about the GA before FAFSA?
Well, I don't know, because there are times when people do not hear back from the GA situation until actually all through the summer. So we give more GAs to out-of-state students, and so what happens, they pull out, so then the next person up gets it. The FAFSA thing, though, you just go ahead and go with it, because then they will handle all that business. Like you asked about financial aid, the university will then work in and try to pay, they'll try to go ahead, if they're gonna pay a bill, you know. So it's fine to do the FAFSA. I think that's gonna be required for the GA anyway. I think they're gonna need that eventually. A lot of GA questions. Anything else? That's a good thing to do. So like one GA this semester is working with an expert in visual impairment. He's updating his book, which, by the way, the fellow is Dr. Weiner. He also has a PhD in counseling, so it's kind of interesting. You get to do different things. GAs help Dr. Dames with some of the placement material she does, the different faculty with their research and so forth, so it's a pretty good thing. It's not too stressful, I wouldn't say it is. Yes, Dr. Curry.
Have you guys already talked about Leotech? Yep.
Anything else?
I have one more thing. For counseling the children and adolescents, that course, is that available in phase 1 for mental health counseling? Or?
There's no prerequisites for that class?
I didn't know, I didn't see that.
You can take 4 classes. Some advisors will not recommend it. It does require an override to take that 4th class or 12 hours. But are you a school major or mental health?
Mental health.
Mental health, okay.
I've got the first 2 that you mentioned, but
Okay.
I was looking for
And
favorite.
just keep in mind, that one will not be on your required plan of study.
Okay.
So that'd be your elective, but, school counseling is still 51 at the moment, right?
Mhm.
So, actually, did you talk about that? Like, so if you're gonna be at LPC, you're gonna have 60 hours, and, actually, I think it's after you all, the next group of people admitted are gonna have to do 60 hours anyway. So, it's a good idea for all you school counseling folks to think in the direction of 60 hours, because if you want to become a licensed professional counselor, you've got to have 60. So what you're asking about, that's a real good class for, if you're gonna work with children. I don't know how many people are in it at the moment.
I have 13 this fall,
Okay.
and I've had students from criminal justice, social work. This semester, I think it's all counselor ed.
So if you want that class, you need to get on with that, because these other folks will creep in a little bit, I think. I don't think the MSW people have even started registering, so there's a ton of them, and they could fill one class up.
Is that class every fall and spring, or is it?
We're expecting it to be fall
Okay.
this semester, because we have another new course we're gonna roll out in the spring that just went through the approval process.
Okay.
And that's gonna be counseling children with special needs.
Which is going to be required of school. Let me go to Dr. Curry, and we'll go back to you. What were you going to say, Dr. Curry?
That's my role on the board. I do educational reviewing of applications, and one of the big things that is problematic and holds up a lot of applications is students do not take the proper courses. So if you are a school person, make sure that you go to the board's website and you look at the required courses and make sure you have those courses. Because if you don't have those courses, you have to go, it'll delay you being able to become an LPC. So make sure that clinical mental health, you're gonna have those courses, but even though it's 60 hours, it has to be the courses that are listed on the boards.
And right now, school counseling is consistent with that. But we always have to stay on top of the board's website, because they can change
It does,
something.
yes.
One thing on that as well, sometimes, did you talk about transferring classes in?
No.
So sometimes people ask to transfer classes in. That's where that becomes a problem, what Dr. Currien's mentioning. So the only classes you could transfer in are classes that you've taken within the last 2 years, classes that you made a B or better in, and we would want it to be a K-CREP accredited course. So that's a situation where you could get in trouble with what Dr. Currien's talking about. If we do transfer a course in for you, when you apply for either NBCC or LPC, you need to send that transcript as well.
Yes.
You know, they want to see both those transcripts.
And then you might need to get a description of that course, because sometimes it's not the same name as what we have on the board's website, so we have to search for it, so make sure that you have all that information.
What were you gonna?
I think she kind of answered me when you stated 60. I was trying to determine, was it credit hours, or were you talking about just some credit hours?
Semester out.
These are things you can talk about with your advisor along the way. I didn't want to overwhelm you with all this information at one point in time, but you know, it is something, if you're not a mental health major, that you want to consider taking 60 hours so that you can possibly pursue your status as an LPCA, just to give you more options in the future. But it's usually a conversation you'll have with your advisor. We don't want to overwhelm you with too much right now.
How many incoming students are there going to be for the fall?
Well, we had projected to admit 20. I know that I'm recording on this device right here because we have several international folks that we have offered admission to. So,
What was her question?
how many did we admit?
Yeah, so our goal is we're trying to get it down to 120 students. And I think
Total
we're at
in the program at
132.
one time.
Gotcha.
So we've got to, so yeah, Dr. Royal's right. We probably, but we need to get, so we're trying to get the numbers down. Sorry, but it's good for you because you're.
Yeah.
But we record the meeting just for those folks that are not close by, that, you know, we admitted people from Las Vegas, California, you know, they just can't come for the orientation meeting, so.
Hey, online student, where are you coming from?
Rockingham, North Carolina.
Okay. What's your name?
Chanel.
Chanel. Good. So Chanel is Rockingham. That's good though. In-state tuition.
Any other questions?
Okay, so that's just an HO number I just gave all of you. So that's what you need to put on your override form. That's that number. And that's a number you really should memorize, because anytime you have an issue, anytime you need to do something, the first thing anybody's gonna ask is what your HO number.
I told you her title was Lifesaver.
Well, I have one question. I'm sorry. So if you're considering the dual major, for my plan of study, there's an elective I can choose one of those classes?
Well, what I would suggest is to go to that website, and it has dual major, and it lays out every option. And if you're a career major, how to dual major in school counseling or mental health counseling. So it's all in written form there. But what you think about it, in general, your required plan of study is written on that form, and you're able to look to see what classes are required for you. Then look on, say, if you're thinking about double majoring in mental health counseling, what classes are on that plan that are not on yours? And if whatever's that are there that are not on yours, you got to take those, plus an additional 300-hour internship. But it's on the website in written form. So, anything else?
Did you talk to them about being on probation and things like that?
I did not talk about that.
All right, so let me just bring that up. You can make, if you make a C, you're on probation. If you make 2 Cs, you're dismissed from the program. So just watch that. You want A's and B's. If you make an F, of course, you'd be dismissed from the program. But a person cannot graduate with 2 Cs. So what that means is if a person makes a C in a particular class, they would have to retake that particular class and get a B or better in it. And then you also have to be above a 3.0 GPA. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Like the law school, for example, is different. So sometimes people have a different feel. All of our graduate students are under that kind of, that's the requirement for them. So be careful if you're thinking I'm going to load up and take 12 or 15 hours. Just make sure you can handle that. And do you have any questions about parking? Any questions about parking? So I personally think it's best to get a parking pass. I know there are others that don't think that way. And it's because they consider it more of a hunting pass, I believe it is. But, you know, and that's would have been good to ask Caroline. Do we know if she has a parking pass or not?
She does not.
She does not, okay. Or maybe ask Ms. Joyner. But you could park over in the criminal justice section, over close to the law school, you know, and that way you know. So I kind of like that because then it's on us as far as your parking. Campus police pretty good about those kinds of things too. It is expensive. I don't know what it would be now, but for a student. But I sense all the law school students, even though at least the day students have parking passes, you know.
And they'll take up spots in the school.
They will, but then, you know, you can beat with the schedule, I think you can beat the day or the evening students. I think you can beat them, and usually a couple of them are state troopers, and so, you know, it's kind of neat because your car's parked next to them. Somebody's probably not going to break into your car. Yes.
If all the classes that were signed up for this semester are online, does it make sense to do a parking pass, or would you say just?
No.
Okay.
Then you just saved that money, so.
But maybe in spring you'll have a face-to-face class.
Yeah,
Can you
but buy it then. So save that, so that way, maybe put that in a place where you can gain some interest and buy it then, so yes. And that's that's a really good question, although I don't think any of our classes are after, like they're 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, right?
And 6.
And we've got 6, but that's more your classes, right?
That's intro to clinical mental health.
Ooh, buddy, you might need.
6 to 8:30.
But you know what? After 5, they can park anywhere, can't they?
I'm not sure.
I think you can. Watch that and do not quote me on that. Go and look at the website. Because when people do park, can they park after 5 p.m.? Not in the reserve section, not reserved, but like over beside the law school and such. So look at that. And what Dr. Curry was about to mention was the reserve section. Never park in a reserved parking space. Those are in the back and they'll tow you.
If you don't have a permit, it's usually street parking on the
Yeah.
street, and it's 2-hour parking. So it's kind of move and shuffle.
But I think they would be okay if they come for a 4 o'clock class, then they would get past the 5 p.m. I think they're okay. It would just be like if you're a grad assistant.
You could also get a parking space in the parking deck.
Yeah.
Which would be your spot in the parking deck. And we do have a shuttle that runs, and since our classes aren't late anymore, I think it stops at 7. So essentially, you could get your parking space assured in the parking deck and then get shuttled over or walk over. It's a good day. It's maybe, what, a 10-minute walk?
Yeah, I would say
But you're assured a parking space there.
3,000 steps probably.
And I think that they give you incentives like meals at the,
Well, and it's where the bookstore's at.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, you know, it's kind of neat over there. Anything else? Yes.
So as far as registering for these classes, we just give you our override form and you do them, or are we gonna
Yeah,
like
we'll put you in. So the key is that we can read everything. The A2O number is there, the CRNs are there, and then you give it to Miss Joyner, and we'll take care of you.
Yeah, leave those here today, unless you need to think about it, about that 3rd class, but then we'd still want it back pretty soon.
Because we know we're over on 5201 and 5310, so we would like to get you all in those 2 classes, ethical and professional issues and theories and techniques. We know that we need our students in there. We don't need other people's, and I can already see that's going to be a problem. So I'd like to get you all in there so that then we're making decisions about social work or psychology or whatever on a case-by-case basis.
I also want to encourage you all, if they haven't already mentioned this, the manuscript for the American Psychological Association, it's our writing manual for every class in our program. You should have that and use it. I would, in my doctoral program, I know we had a class that was pretty much based on it at State. But the center section has sample papers. Look at that paper. If your paper doesn't look like that paper, don't turn it in, because we do mark off for not following APA format. So please be sure that you have the APA manual and that you use it. That is something that is expected. Some classes, like in my class, for the discussion board post, you're supposed to use it, because it's a way to give credit where you're getting information. You're in graduate school, you're gonna be doing research type papers. Writing is a very important part of your experience. If you have a challenge writing, we do have a writing and speaking, is it speaking and writing center?
Yes, Writing Center and Speaking Studio.
Studio. If you know you have difficulty somewhat with writing papers, you want to make an appointment with them and talk to them, because writing is important in our program. And also, if you have a particular area of expertise that you want to have, start reading a journal article from that area, scholarly journal article weekly, and see how they write their scholarly papers. Your papers should start looking like those papers, because we're expecting you to have that level of scholarship. So, you know, take your paper writing very seriously as far as what you turn in, and adhere to the APA manual. That is something we cannot stress enough. And a lot of students will have their fancy title page and no running header, and they get marked off for it. Just know that ahead of time and read instructions. That's all I gotta say.
Anything else? Anything else from faculty? All right, well, we're glad you're with us. We're glad you selected us. Thanks for coming today, and let us know if you have any questions.
Do we just hand the paper or leave it? I'll get
Okay.
All right.